They called it mindless because it did not scream when the shock prods burned into its hide, and because its eyes followed patterns no one else could see. The creature sat inside a transparent containment prism at research platform K317, its massive frame folded awkwardly to fit the geometry humans had designed without asking whether geometry mattered to something born under crushing gravity and methane storms. Its species designation, translated loosely as Varkesh predatoriform, was stamped across a dozen datapads, each followed by the same annotation, non-sentient. Feral. Cognitive ceiling negligible. Dr. Howland Vox adjusted his crest and clicked his mandibles in irritation as he reviewed the latest behavioral report. The creature had refused to attack the automated drones again, simply tracking them, anticipating their movement, never striking. Refusal patterns are random, the junior xenologist said nervously. Probably instinct noise. Or learned helplessness, Howland replied. Either way, irrelevant. The specimen exists to demonstrate baseline aggression responses. That is all. The human stood at the back of the observation chamber, unnoticed as usual. Elias Ward had learned early that most non-humans categorized him as logistical support until proven otherwise. He wore a plain utility uniform, sleeves rolled up, hands stained with grease from repairing a grav stabilizer 2 decks down. He was not scheduled to be here. He simply liked watching the creature. Where the others saw a beast, Elias saw restraint. He saw patience. He saw something waiting. The first time he spoke up, it was an accident. The research team had been debating whether to increase neural stimulation voltage when Elias muttered, "You're cornering it wrong." Halrin's crest flared. "Explain yourself, human." Elias hesitated, then stepped forward, pointing at the holographic replay. "Your drones always advance symmetrically. Same angles. Same timing. It knows you're testing reflexes, not survival. If you wanted aggression, you'd have to behave irrationally." The chamber fell silent. Several researchers exchanged glances, annoyed more than curious. "We are not here to solicit intuition," Howland said. "This creature lacks the capacity for higher reasoning." Elias met the alien's multifaceted gaze without flinching. "Then why does it remember?" They dismissed him after that, but something had shifted. The next cycle, Elias returned on his own time, bringing a small folding table and an old, magnetized chessboard he'd carried since Earth. The guards laughed as he approached the prism. "Teaching it human toys?" one asked. "Something like that," Elias replied. He sat cross-legged just outside the containment field, close enough that the creature's shadow swallowed him. Slowly, deliberately, he set up the board. White pieces facing the prism. Black pieces toward himself. The creature's head tilted. Not in confusion, but alignment, as if adjusting a lens. "This is a game," Elias said quietly, aware the translators wouldn't bother rendering it. "No shocks. No pain. Just patterns." He made the first move. Pawn T4. The creature did nothing. Its breathing remained slow, controlled. Elias waited. Minutes passed. He moved another piece, narrating softly, explaining concepts no one had authorized him to explain. Territory. Sacrifice. Patience. On the third visit, something extraordinary happened. When Elias reached to move a knight, the creature extended a claw, not striking, not threatening, and tapped the board. One square. Then another. The pawn Elias had moved earlier slid back across the board, magnetically displaced by careful pressure. The board recorded the interaction automatically. The system flagged it as an anomaly. Howland watched the footage twice, then 3 times, his mandibles tightening. "That is mimicry," he insisted. "No comprehension." "Then why did it counter my opening?" Elias asked. Permission was revoked immediately. The chessboard was confiscated. Elias was reassigned to waste processing. The creature was scheduled for neural dissection within the week. That night, as alarms dinned and the station rotated toward artificial dawn, Elias returned anyway. He brought no board this time, only his hands and his voice. "You're not mindless," he whispered through the barrier. They just don't know what mind looks like when it isn't shaped like theirs. The creature leaned forward, eyes reflecting the station lights like distant stars lining up for war. By the time the alarms began lying, Elias understood that the station itself had chosen a side. The first false alarm sounded halfway through the night cycle, a soft chiming alert that claimed a pressure fluctuation in the lower research ring. Engineers responded automatically, sealing bulkheads and rerouting power, while security logs showed nothing out of tolerance. 10 minutes later, another alert triggered, this one flagging a data loop inconsistency in the xenoneural labs. Again, nothing. By the third alarm, irritation had replaced concern, and response times slowed just enough to matter. Elias moved through maintenance corridors with practiced ease, carrying a diagnostic tablet that granted him access no one had bothered to revoke. Humans were good at being overlooked, especially when they behaved exactly as expected. He did not run. He did not hide. He simply went where the station believed he belonged. Behind containment prism 7, the creature waited. Its posture had changed since the chessboard was taken away. Not slumped, not defensive, coiled. Its attention tracked Elias the instant he entered the chamber, eyes focusing with an intensity that made the hairs on his arms rise. "I'm sorry," Elias murmured, placing his palm against the transparent field. "I didn't think they'd move this fast." The dissection order had been signed by Howren Vox himself, justified under emergency research provisions. Non-sentient specimens did not require ethical review. The fact that the creature had solved a tactical problem in under 6 moves had been labeled a statistical aberration. Dangerous anomalies were best understood in pieces. Elias set the tablet down and opened a schematic of the containment systems. "We don't have much time," he said, more to steady himself than to inform the being watching him. "They think your mind is a fluke. I think it's just different." The creature shifted, extending one claw toward the field. Instead of striking, it traced a slow, deliberate pattern, left, forward, diagonal. Elias swallowed. It was recreating the opening sequence from memory. "Yeah," he whispered. "You remember." Footsteps echoed in the outer corridor. Elias stiffened, then relaxed as a pair of junior researchers passed by, arguing about calibration metrics. No one looked inside. No one ever did unless they expected violence. He adjusted the tablet, initiating a low-level diagnostic on the prism's power couplings. The system resisted, prompting for authorization Elias did not have. He smiled faintly and rerouted through a maintenance subroutine written for humans who forgot to log out properly. The field flickered, imperceptible to most sensors, but enough for the creature's pupils to contract. "Not yet," Elias breathed. "I need you calm." That was the problem, of course. Everything about the creature had been labeled feral because it did not react the way others expected. Its species did not waste energy. It did not thrash. It observed. When threatened, it calculated. Howren Vox entered the observation deck above, crest rigid with satisfaction. "Prepare neural anchors," he ordered. "Once the incision begins, record everything. This is a rare opportunity." Elias's tablet chimed softly. A warning, security permissions tightening station-wide. Someone had noticed the false alarms weren't random. Time was collapsing. He looked up at the creature. "Okay," he said. "New rules." He knelt and used his finger to trace an invisible grid on the floor, the ghost of a chessboard only he could see. "This isn't about winning," he continued quietly. "It's about delaying. Trading space for time. You know how to do that." The creature watched his hand, then lowered its massive head until its brow nearly touched the field. Slowly, it traced the same grid from the other side, mirroring him perfectly. Security drones descended into the lab level, their movements efficient and symmetrical. Elias cursed under his breath. "Of course they'd move like rooks," he muttered. He triggered the next phase. The containment prism dimmed another fraction, just enough to register as a sensor error. The creature exhaled, a sound like distant thunder, and shifted its weight. Not toward the opening, but sideways, positioning itself where the field was weakest. "Good," Elias said. Very good. Halloran frowned as data scrolled across his display. Why is the specimen repositioning? Instinctive stress response. An assistant replied automatically. No, Halloran snapped. It's anticipating. The realization hit him like a delayed shock. Lock the prism at maximum output. Now. The command raced through the system, colliding with the maintenance override Elias had already seeded. For a heartbeat, the station hesitated, conflicting priorities grinding against each other. In that moment of indecision, Elias slammed his palm down and dropped the containment field entirely. The creature did not attack. It stepped forward with terrifying grace, filling the chamber, and placed itself between Elias and the incoming drones. Its body angled, presenting no vital points, just as Elias had shown it when explaining sacrifice. Drones fired. The creature moved, not randomly, but optimally, forcing them into each other's lines of fire. Sparks filled the air. Alarms screamed, real this time. Elias backed toward the maintenance hatch, heart hammering. Delay, he whispered. Just delay. Above them, Halloran Vox stared at the unfolding chaos, his certainty unraveling as the creature executed a flawless defensive pattern. This is impossible, he said softly. Below, the creature glanced back once at Elias, eyes sharp with understanding, and shifted again, buying him another precious move. The moment the first drone shattered against the containment wall, the station learned what it meant to be outplayed. Red emergency lights washed the chamber in frantic pulses as security protocols cascaded into one another, each system attempting to seize control and only succeeding in slowing the others down. The creature moved through the chaos like a living equation, every step deliberate, every turn calculated to force its enemies into disadvantage. It did not roar. It did not charge. It repositioned, herding drones into narrow arcs where their own firing solutions interfered. Elias scrambled through the maintenance hatch and sealed it behind him, chest burning as he dropped into a crawl space that vibrated with distant explosions. He did not run blindly. He counted. 6 seconds between pulses. 2 seconds between volleys. The creature was buying him time exactly the way he had hoped, trading ground for tempo, sacrificing safety for position. Above, Halloran Vox barked orders that came too late to matter. Adapt formation! Asymmetrical advance! Stop mirroring each other! The drones could not hear frustration. They only understood code, and their code had never been written to face something that learned faster than it did. In the chamber, the creature seized one drone mid-flight, and used its mass to redirect another's fire, metal screaming as it tore apart. A third slammed into the ceiling under forced evasion, detonating in a storm of shrapnel. The creature recoiled just enough to avoid lethal damage, accepting burns along its flank without hesitation. Pain was a cost, not a deterrent. Elias reached a junction and forced the hatch open, emerging into a service corridor already filling with smoke. He accessed a wall panel and flooded the adjacent sector with diagnostic noise, scrambling sensors and making human-sized movement nearly invisible. Come on, he muttered. Think like a knight, not a pawn. Halloran watched the tactical overlay collapse into meaningless red icons. It's predicting our response curves, he said, disbelief cracking his voice. It's not reacting, it's preempting. Impossible, another scientist whispered. No, Halloran replied slowly. Unacceptable. He issued the order that would end the debate. Release the suppressor unit. Deep within the station, something heavy unlocked. The suppressor was not a drone but a relic, a weaponized organism engineered specifically to terminate rogue megafauna. It lacked curiosity, lacked adaptability, and compensated with overwhelming force. Its containment seals disengaged, and it thundered down reinforced corridors toward the lab, every step broadcasting annihilation. The creature felt it coming before it appeared. Vibrations traveled through the deck plates, carrying intent as clearly as sound. It paused, then shifted its stance, abandoning the defensive lattice it had maintained so carefully. Elias felt that change even from 3 levels away, a tightening in his gut as if a board position had suddenly gone bad. No, he breathed. That's not a trade you win. The suppressor burst into the chamber like a collapsing wall, armored plates bristling with kinetic cannons. It fired immediately, not bothering with angles or caution. The first impact flung the creature across the room, slamming it into reinforced glass hard enough to spiderweb the surface. Alarms spiked. Structural integrity dipped. Halloran leaned forward, mandibles trembling. "End it," he whispered. The creature rose slowly, smoke curling from scorched flesh. It did not rush back in. Instead, it stepped sideways, then again, drawing the suppressor's aim off-center. Another blast tore through the space it had occupied a heartbeat earlier. Elias burst into the observation deck, breath ragged, and slammed his hands against the transparent barrier. "Don't fight it head-on!" he shouted, knowing full well the creature could not hear him. "Force it to commit!" The creature's eyes flicked upward anyway, locking briefly on Elias's silhouette. Understanding passed between them in that instant, not through language but shared structure. The creature turned and fled deeper into the chamber, deliberately exposing its back. The suppressor followed, cannons charging for a killing blow. Then the floor gave way. Elias had rerouted power to the grav anchors beneath the chamber, inverting polarity at the exact moment the suppressor crossed the threshold. The massive weapon stumbled as gravity twisted sideways, its own weight betraying it. The creature leapt, not upward but laterally, using the shifting force to propel itself onto the suppressor's back. It did not claw wildly. It targeted joints, seams, power conduits it had observed during earlier scans. One precise strike disabled a cannon. Another tore free an armor plate. The suppressor thrashed, firing blindly, each blast further destabilizing the room. Halloran screamed for shutdown codes that no longer mattered. The creature drove its claws deep and held on as the suppressor collapsed under its own failing systems. When the final explosion came, it was contained, channeled upward through emergency vents Elias had unlocked seconds earlier. Fire roared past the observation deck, heat blistering the glass but not breaching it. Silence followed, thick and stunned. The creature lay amid wreckage, heaving, burned and bleeding but alive. Elias sagged against the barrier, sliding down until he sat on the floor, laughing weakly through tears. Against every assumption, against every annotation stamped into a datapad, the so-called mindless animal had not just survived. It had won the endgame. Elias exhaled slowly, letting the smoke and acrid tang of burned circuits settle into the background hum of the station. The creature rose from the wreckage, muscles scarred but unbowed, and padded toward the nearest observation window. Its gaze swept across the corridors, taking in the aftermath with the same meticulous calm it had shown at the chessboard. "Yeah," Elias whispered, brushing ash from his uniform. "You're brilliant. But I think we both know it's time to leave." The containment prism had been destroyed in the chaos. Automated lockdown systems had failed. Halloran Vox's authority, like the station's lights, flickered and dimmed under the weight of what had happened. Humans and aliens alike had witnessed a species previously written off as mindless executing a perfect strategic maneuver. Elias guided the creature through service corridors that now smelled of scorched metal and ozone. He had no plan, no evacuation protocol, only instinct honed through years of survival on frontier stations. Every step was measured, every sound assessed. The creature mirrored him, its movement fluid, silent, deliberate. They reached the docking bay. A small shuttle, scarcely fit for one human and a megafauna of alien proportions, sat tethered and idling. Elias ran diagnostics in record time, fingers flying over the console while the creature leaned its massive frame against the hull, its body radiating calm intensity. "You really are a chess master," Elias muttered. "Even in real life." The boarding ramp hissed open. The human clambered aboard, heart hammering as he guided the creature into the shuttle's reinforced hold. Space was tight, claustrophobic, yet it fit. Not comfortably. Not conveniently. But it fit, because Ingenuity, like chess, was about maximizing the possible and the impossible. Outside, the station was in disarray. Security drones had collapsed into inert heaps, systems sparking intermittently. Red lights blinked their warnings, but no one could intervene fast enough. News would spread, eventually. A human and a mindless alien had turned the station into a tactical puzzle no one could solve. Inside the shuttle, Elias allowed himself a moment to breathe. The creature lowered its head close to him, nostrils flaring, eyes locking in a gaze that was almost human in its comprehension. No words passed, yet understanding flowed as clearly as a shared secret. "You learned," he said quietly. "Not just the game. The rules. And how to break them." The creature's response was a slow, deliberate blink, a movement Elias took as acknowledgement. They launched. The shuttle detached with a shudder, thrusters flaring as the station receded into the distance, its lights blinking weakly against the void. Elias watched through the cockpit viewport as the station shrank, a monument to bureaucracy undone by pattern recognition and audacity. "Now what?" he asked. The question was more rhetorical than practical. Survival had never promised a roadmap, only choices. The creature shifted, paw brushing against the control panel, nudging a lever. The shuttle responded, pivoting smoothly. It was not following a preset course. It was choosing one, intuitively, instinctively, based on angles, mass, and velocity. Elias laughed softly, a mix of relief and disbelief. "You're going to make a terrible roommate," he joked, though the words felt small in the face of what they had accomplished. They navigated asteroid belts, dodged patrols, and slipped into uncharted regions where no human or alien authority could follow without warning. All the while, the creature observed, learned, and adapted, not out of obedience, but because it could. Each maneuver felt like a game, each calculated risk a move on a cosmic chessboard that only they shared. By the time they reached a quiet, unclaimed moon, Elias allowed the shuttle to settle on its surface. The creature stepped out first, planting massive claws into the soft regolith. Its body shimmered faintly under the moon's pale light, scars illuminated like trophies. Elias followed, breathing in the alien air, tasting freedom for the first time in weeks. They had survived because they had trusted each other and because the creature's mind, deemed negligible by xenologists, had proven itself superior to calculations, programs, and assumptions. A so-called mindless animal had taught them all a lesson: intelligence does not always wear the form one expects. Elias crouched beside the creature, placing a hand on its shoulder. "We won," he said, though the truth was larger than victory. It was revolution. It was proof that thinking differently could rewrite destiny. The creature leaned into him, and for the first time, it seemed almost playful, nudging his side as if to say, "Your move." Elias smiled, tired but exhilarated. He lifted a piece of debris from the shuttle's cargo hold, a makeshift pawn, reminiscent of their first game. He set it on the ground, and the creature tapped it with precision, knocking it forward exactly as he had once taught it. The stars above were infinite, but for the first time, neither human nor alien felt small beneath them. They had survived. They had triumphed. And they had done it together. "Next game," Elias murmured. "We start with the Queen." The creature's low, rumbling exhale sounded almost like laughter. And somewhere in the void, the universe paused, acknowledging that assumptions could be overturned, that intellect was not confined to one species, and that courage, whether in flesh or strategy, was its own kind of victory. They looked out at the stars, companions in the vast unknown, ready for whatever move came next. The board was set. And the game had only just begun.